What if, after living more than half a century, you suddenly realize that the one person who remains by your side until your last breath isn't your wife, your husband, or even your children? It sounds like a bold statement, doesn't it? We spend years pouring our love into the people around us. We marry, raise children, and surround ourselves with friends, all while hoping they'll be there when our hair turns silver and our steps slow down. Yet life has a strange way of shifting our path and teaching us that certain truths aren't what we expect. It's not that our loved ones vanish without reason. It's just that everyone has their own journey, and it doesn't always match the one we imagine. Every stage of life feels like a new chapter in a book we can't quite put down. There's excitement in the early pages, then struggles and triumphs, and finally a reflective calm as we near the back cover. But as we turn those final pages, something becomes clear. The person who stays with us, unconditionally and without fail, isn't our spouse or children. They share parts of our journey, yes, but they can't always walk every step by our side. Before we go further, I'd like to know where you're joining us from. And if you find any comfort or insight in these talks, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. In times like these, it's nice to know we're part of something bigger, a community of individuals trying to make sense of life's twists and turns. Now, let's think about the years we spend building a life with someone we love. We picture ourselves in a warm house with a spouse who cherishes us, maybe children running around or eventually moving on to create their own homes. It's a lovely vision, and for many, it becomes reality. We nurture these relationships with such care, assuming they'll last through thick and thin, but time has a way of wearing things down. Illness might come knocking, or maybe distance creeps in. People change, sometimes they drift apart. It doesn't mean the love was false. It just means that what holds people together can shift like sand under the tides of life. With children, the change can be even more sudden. One moment you're holding a toddler's hand, guiding them across the street. The next, they're packing their bags, starting careers, and building families of their own. They might still care for you deeply, but they have their own obligations, their own dreams to chase. They can't always be there, physically or emotionally, in the way you might hope. It's not a matter of love being lost. It's that every person has their path, and the older we get, the more we see how separate those paths can become. In the quiet spaces of old age, when the house is no longer buzzing with chatter, you might start to wonder what happened to the bonds you thought were unbreakable. There might be regret or loneliness, and you might feel like something has gone wrong. But here's the thing, it's simply part of the natural flow of life. We come together in certain seasons, and we part in others. It doesn't minimize the love shared, but it does change the landscape of how we move forward. Understanding this can bring a sense of peace rather than disappointment, because you start realizing that there's one relationship you've overlooked for a long time: the relationship with yourself. We often take ourselves for granted. We assume we'll be okay as long as we have the right people around. We look for reassurance in our spouse's eyes, or we hope that our children's accomplishments can somehow fill us with pride so strong we forget the years slipping by. But in reality, the individual standing in the mirror each morning is the one who goes through every single triumph, heartbreak, and ordinary day with you. You can't escape that presence, even if you try to drown it out with distractions. And if you don't nurture that relationship, you might find yourself feeling lonely even in a room full of people who love you. When you cross the milestone of 60 years or more, there's a unique opportunity to reclaim that bond with yourself. By now, you've lived through enough experiences to know what truly matters. You understand that life doesn't revolve around constant excitement, but rather in the everyday blessings you might have once brushed aside. Simple pleasures like sipping tea on the porch or watching the sunset can become gateways to a deeper understanding of who you are. In this quieter stage, You can finally give time to the parts of yourself that have been neglected, the dreams you set aside, or the hobbies you always wanted to try. It might sound a bit odd to prioritize yourself, especially if you've been taught that caring for others should always come first. But think of it this way. If you spent decades working to provide for your family or caring for your children, you owe it to yourself to discover who you are beyond those roles. This doesn't mean you stop loving or supporting your spouse or kids. It just means you're giving yourself the chance to grow, to learn, and to be at peace. In doing so, you might actually find that you have more to offer your loved ones, because you're coming from a place of wholeness rather than a place of need or emptiness. You don't have to embark on some grand adventure to deepen your relationship with yourself. It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each morning to sit with your thoughts. Ask yourself how you're feeling, what you're looking forward to, or what you're worried about. Think about the things that brought you joy in your childhood or early adulthood, and see if any of those interests still light a spark. Write down a few notes, or speak them aloud if you'd prefer. There's no right or wrong way to reflect. The important part is giving yourself the space to do it without judgment. It's also helpful to recognize that being alone doesn't have to equal loneliness. We sometimes confuse the two. Loneliness is that ache for connection, the feeling that nobody understands. But solitude can be a precious time of self-discovery, healing, and rest. You can be alone in a room and still feel deeply connected to life if you're at peace with who you are. That sense of peace often arrives when we stop resisting the natural flow of relationships. Instead of clinging to what used to be, we appreciate what was and accept that everything changes. We remain open to love if it comes our way, but we don't rely on it to keep us whole. Our loved ones might be physically absent, but that doesn't erase the memories or the impact they've had on us. You can carry their love in your heart as you stroll through a garden or read a good book. When you understand that nobody truly belongs to you, you're free to love them without fear of loss. It's a paradox, but it's true. Realizing that each relationship is temporary can help you cherish it even more. Meanwhile, your relationship with yourself is the closest thing you have to an unbreakable bond, because wherever you go, there you are. You might wonder if it's too late to cultivate this sense of peace, especially if you're already feeling the aches and pains of older age. But it's never too late. Growth doesn't stop when your hair turns gray or your step becomes slower. Sometimes we need to reach our later years to finally have the time to ask the important questions. Why am I here? What legacy do I want to leave behind? How can I use the wisdom I've gained to make my remaining years meaningful? As you ponder these questions, you'll discover insights that can guide you toward a gentler, more accepting view of life. In a sense, you become your own lifelong companion and guide. You're there through the tears and laughter, the smooth roads, and the bumpy detours. No matter how much you love your spouse or your children, they can't live inside your skin or feel exactly what you feel. They can only walk alongside you for as long as life allows. One day, your spouse might have to leave unexpectedly, maybe due to illness or circumstances out of their control. Your children have their futures to look after, and you'll want them to live fully, just as you once did. It's natural to let them go so they can grow. This understanding is both sobering and liberating. It's sobering because we realize we can't hold on to anyone forever, and we can't rely on them to fulfill all our needs. It's liberating because it takes away the pressure we place on ourselves and others. Instead of living in fear of abandonment, we start to celebrate every shared moment for what it is, a temporary but beautiful gift. And when we're alone, we aren't pining for someone else to complete us. We're simply appreciating our own presence, the quiet strength that comes from knowing we're enough on our own. Take a look back at your life and see how many times you surprised yourself by overcoming struggles you never thought you could handle. Maybe you faced a tough illness, navigated financial hardships, or lost someone dear. Yet here you are, reading or listening, still finding a reason to keep going. That resilience isn't something anyone else gave you. It came from within. It's proof that you carry a well of inner strength, and that well is always there for you to draw from, especially in moments when you feel like everything else has drifted away. This, in essence, is why the person who will stay with you until the end isn't your wife, your children, or anyone else. It's that deep part of you that has seen every dawn and every dusk. You can call it your spirit, your heart, or simply yourself. When you take the time to know this companion well, you find that you're never truly alone. Life's changes become a little less frightening because you understand that no matter what happens outside of you, you have a steady core within. And if these words bring some peace to your day, I'd love to know what resonates with you. Sharing your own reflections might just encourage someone else who's feeling a bit adrift. After all, we're all in this together, learning as we go, finding companionship in unexpected places, even in the simple act of realizing that we are our own true friend.